Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Brilliant Metrics webinar. Today, we are talking about easy wins to be more data-driven. And when we say 3 easy wins, these are 3 easy wins, but we're going to go a little bit deeper than easy on each one. So I want to make sure you take away the value from each one of these easy wins, but then for those of you that are a little bit further along in your journey, I want to go a little bit deeper on each one as well. So diving in. Little bit of housekeeping. First of all, please do ask questions. You can ask those questions into the chat, and I will respond to them live if possible. If not, then I will respond to them at the end. But don't hold that back. Ask the question while it's top of mind. Second of all, a copy of these slides will be emailed to you. If you are coming in on the live stream, you will get a chance to request that copy of your slides, or if you're watching this recording after the fact on YouTube or social or somewhere else, you'll get a chance to scan a QR code and request those slides at the end. Otherwise, if you're coming in on the Zoom, you got a link already. We know who you are, and we'll get you a copy of the slides after the presentation. Okay, diving in our agenda, or a little bit about me. My name is Steve Robinson, the founder and CEO here at Brilliant Metrics. I love teaching. It's my happy place. I love speaking. And so I love giving these webinars here. Well, I'll just leave it at that. Brilliant Metrics is our agency. Brilliant Metrics is a B2B strategic marketing agency. We do advertising, we do marketing, we set up marketing automation, email marketing, etc. But what makes us different is we find the clarity in the clutter. So clients come to us to seek that clarity, that direction, that insight on where to move next. And we really take a more strategic approach than most other agencies in the B2B space. All right, enough plugging our agency. Let's dive into the content. We're going to cover 4 basic topics here. One, what is the value of being more data-driven? Why is this a good thing? Why is it worth all the effort to do this? Then we'll dig into KPIs, finding the KPIs that matter. We'll dig into Google Analytics and getting value out of that tool, especially in GA4 land, where a lot of us feel like we just can't find the value anymore. And then we'll talk about A/B testing and how we can make that more accessible to a broader audience and less intimidating. All right, so why data-driven? Why should we bother with the effort? I think there are 3 main reasons why being more data-driven in your marketing will benefit you personally. One, it enables continuous improvement. If you are data-driven, you create this virtuous cycle where you're able to look at the data, identify potential changes to make improvement, and then off of those changes, you are able to then look at the data that comes back in response and make another change. This works really well if you're continuously running media and marketing programs, which is something that we strongly advocate. If you're stopping and starting with little campaigns, it becomes a lot harder to get the full value out of being data-driven. 2, it fosters creativity. There is nothing scarier to an artist than a blank canvas. And when you are running in a data-driven marketing mindset, you're using the data to inform your next change, your next pivot, your next optimization, which gives the creatives on your team a little bit more direction. You know, the great artists of the years had periods that they would work within to add constraints to their art, to make their art deeper and better. It's no different when you're working on ideating the next social media post, blog post, video, white paper. It doesn't matter. If you have some constraints to what you're producing based on insights about your audience or where you want to test, you'll actually get more creativity out of your team, not less. There's a misconception that being data-driven constrains creativity. It's actually the opposite. And then finally, being data-driven will help you demonstrate value to your boss, to the C-suite, to your clients if you're on the agency side. So these 3 benefits really make it worth the effort to put into being more data-driven in your marketing. If we're going to be data-driven, we need to know what data is important to us. What are the key performance indicators, which is what KPIs stands for, that matter to you and your business. To select those KPIs, I want to introduce a brand new concept here called the KPI continuum. There are a lot of different metrics we could select as KPIs, but really they all sit on a continuum. The left-hand side of this continuum is really the easy stuff to measure and to attribute, but is pretty far distant from the revenue, through money, through profits and revenue that we are all ultimately responsible for. The right-hand side becomes harder to measure and a little and really hard to attribute, but is tied directly to that money. So to give you an example, we look at the left-hand side, we look at seeing things. If your audience is seeing your brand out there, you're creating a brand impression. Brand impressions are easy to measure, but they're pretty far away from money coming into the business, right? That sits over on the other side of the spectrum. And really, it's not even just the revenue coming in, but are we creating high lifetime value relationships? Are we creating customers and clients that not only are they giving us money today, but they're going to give us a lot of money over their lifetime? In between, you have a lot of different metrics. They all fit into roughly into these 5 categories. So going from left to right, we have seeing, which is impressions. Consuming means they're going one step further from just seeing your brand and having it filtered out. They're actually diving in and consuming your content. That could be video content, written content, even an event. They're consuming something. Doing means they're taking action on that content. Doesn't necessarily mean that action is directly on the path to purchase, but they're taking some action. And then finally, buying means that not only are they taking action, but that action is tied directly to a purchase. The metrics or KPIs on the left end of the spectrum, they're leading. And when we say a metric or a KPI is leading or a leading indicator, it means that when we make a change, we're going to see a response to that change right away. If we change our budget, we're going to see a change in impressions immediately. If we change where we're buying those impressions, we're going to see a change in the impressions that are bought immediately, right? We don't have to wait. There's no delay for the change we made to have an impact on the output of the KPI. Those metrics on the left-hand side, the further left you go, the easier they are to attribute, meaning we know where those impressions came from because it's wherever we put the logo, the brand, the ad, the content, right? That's where we got the impression from. We can tie the investment directly back to the impressions we got and know exactly how much we paid for those impressions. There's no mysterious impressions popping up that we don't know where it came from. And an impression didn't come from 2 or 3 different places. It came from one. So it's really easy to tie impressions as a metric back to our investment of time and money. As you move to the right, it gets harder to make those connections, either because that metric resulted from multiple places. If you look at lifetime value, do we know where that came from? No, not necessarily. Or there's a longer time delay. On the left-hand side of the continuum, we have KPIs with lots of data points. These things happen all the time. We're constantly producing these impressions, right? But as we move to the right, the data points become fewer. The percentage of, or the number of times that metric hits is fewer in a given day, week, or month. Moving to the right, the opposite is true. These are lagging indicators. If we make a change to our marketing today, how long will it take to impact the average lifetime value of our customers? Weeks, months, years, decades? It's going to take a long time before that change will come out. These are hard to attribute. Where did the lifetime value come from? If we see an increase in lifetime value, is that because marketing is targeting higher quality customers? Is it because marketing is generating more sales and more customers? Is it because sales is closing better or bigger deals, or sales is going after the right people? Is it because customer service is treating our customers better so they're buying more? Is it because sales is cross-selling and upselling? There are so many variables in this, let alone getting down to individual pieces of creative, that there's no way we can attribute the lifetime value of our customers to one given activity on the marketing side or even the sales side. And then finally, there are fewer data points. Our lifetime value is made up of however many customers we've had for long enough to measure a lifetime value of them. It's a small number of data points. In between here, there are lots of different metrics, and I just threw the ones that we'll often end up measuring, but you might have metrics that aren't on this list, but they probably have a point on the continuum, and you should be able to figure that out to understand how you want to treat those metrics. So moving from left to right, seeing, we have impressions. Kind of in between seeing and consuming is website sessions. Video views is clearly consuming, especially if you're only measuring those views when they get to like 75% or a minute. Soft conversions is a concept we'll introduce later. Branded searches, at that point, we're edging into doing, right? We're not just consuming content, but somebody sought out your brand by name. Opt-ins or unqualified leads, definitely doing. You don't fill out a form by accident. MQLs, though, generally there's some signal there that somebody's on a buying track. Sales qualified leads or pipeline, definitely on a buying track. Then we hit revenue, and then finally that lifetime value. So as you can see, as we move from left to right, those metrics are definitely closer to the money. They're also harder to game, right? Either intentionally or unintentionally. It's a lot harder for you to, let me start the other side. It's relatively easy for you to buy impressions in the wrong place. Or to buy really cheap impressions that look good from a vanity perspective. Look, we're getting our brand out there, umpteen million times a day, right? But if they're all garbage impressions and they're only being viewed by bots, or they're below the fold for paid media, or they're just the wrong people, it's not helping you. But on the right-hand side, when you start getting into pipeline and revenue, you're not going to engage in activities that knock up the pipeline and really have screwed it up too badly, right? It also gets harder and harder to game those numbers, especially when you get to like real revenue and closed sales. Nobody can really juice those metrics by going after, things that look good but aren't actually contributing to the business. So how do we use these? It depends on which section of the continuum they're on. When we look at the metrics that are on the left-hand side in this consuming area, we're really looking at tactical level optimizations that we're making, and we'll often measure these on a cost per basis. What is our cost per website session? What is our cost per video view? What is our cost per soft conversion? And by doing that, we're able to take a look at the efficiency of various tactics at generating this quality consumption. When we look at the metrics on the right, we don't try and attribute them back to the tactics like we do those ones on the left. Here, we're really looking at how does this number change over time? And if we want to understand the impact of marketing, we'll take either the entire marketing program, or we'll take a swath of it and run what's called a demand or sales lift study. And this is where we black out portions of the audience from receiving that marketing, advertising, etc., across multiple mediums and in a big way in order to see the effect, and then see what impact that has on actual revenue, on actual pipeline, or actual sales. These studies take months to run, but they do a great job of validating that marketing is working. And sometimes that's really important in order to continue to get budget. Sometimes that's really important to get headcount. Sometimes that's really important just simply to demonstrate your worth. Sometimes it's helpful to black out a big chunk of that. Maybe it's an entire audience. We'll often separate out our demand lift studies into focused on channel or referral partners versus our end users and black out one or the other to get an idea of which one of those actually has a bigger impact. The middle ones are interesting. Here, I think the primary use of these is we just want to make sure that graph is continuing to go up and to the right. Outside of industry forces, if you have seasonality or the whole industry is down, you're going to see these go down. But otherwise, if you're doing a good job of optimizing the consuming metrics, then you should see your doing metrics going up. Every so often we'll optimize a consuming metric only to find out we actually optimized that for the wrong audience. And now our doing metrics went down. And that's a good indication that we made a wrong turn and we need to go back and look at what we did. But again, trying to attribute an MQL back to all of the individual activities that went into it is really a fool's errand, and you're just going to end up killing yourself trying to understand what percentage of that MQL came from paid versus email and which ads and which placements and stuff like that. What is beneficial is to take a look at those MQLs or those leads and opt-ins and try and understand what the inputs were to generate that. So which things do we know actually contributed? And we usually do that by spot checking the records in the marketing automation platform and just take a look at the marketing activities that show up in there on that MQL. What contributed? What are we expecting to see that isn't there? And that may be a candidate for further evaluation and being cut. So enough about KPIs. I'm running late and running behind. Let's dive into GA4. If there's one thing I want you to understand in the GA4 section is that GA4 out of the box is not useless, but it's definitely not useful either. And I think this is a definite change from the older Google Analytics that we knew and loved. GA4 really requires some setup to get the value out of it. And even then, the canned reports aren't all that valuable. So you're going to have to up your game and your skills in getting the data out. But the bigger problem is you need to get the data in. So I'm going to cover how to do that at a fairly deep technical level here. But if all of this is above your head, I guess get with your digital team, get with your digital agency, and make sure that they've gone through the effort to set this stuff up and set this stuff up right. The three things that digital team or you, if you're technically inclined, need to get set up are custom events, custom dimensions, and custom metrics. Custom events let you know when a website visitor takes a positive action on your site, when they do something you want them to do. And this changes depending on your website and your business objectives, right? But a lot of the common ones we see are key form submits. Did they submit the demo request form? Video views, did they watch a particular explainer video more than halfway? Tool usage, if you've got an ROI calculator, a configurator, or something along those lines that's on that path to purchase, did they complete it? And then important document downloads. It's what's important to you and your brand. That's the key thing here. So how do you get those custom events set up? Well, Nick beat me to the punch here. Google Tag Manager is your friend for doing that, because if you try to do it directly inside of Google Analytics and directly on your website, you're going to run into some issues there. Google Tag Manager is it makes it easy for marketers like you and I, especially if you have a little bit of technical ability, to be able to set up these events on your own. And you do that by going into Google Tag Manager and configuring something called a trigger. There's lots of videos on YouTube that'll help you figure out how to do this. Just Google triggers in GTM or Google Tag Manager. And you'll be able to figure out how to tell Google Tag Manager to detect when somebody submits that form or clicks that download button or does that thing, right? Once you have Google Tag Manager detecting that, You set up something called an event tag that goes and pushes that information over to Google Analytics and says, hey, Google Analytics, somebody did the thing. You're going to have to give that thing a name. And then there's an opportunity to pass additional data over there too. Again, if this is above your technical level, get with your digital agency and have them help you with this, because it's a one-time setup and the value will be there the whole time you're running the site. Sometimes, every once in a while, Google Tag Manager can't figure out that that event happened. This really happens most often if you've got a website that has a ton of JavaScript on it, like pages don't load. You're just working within that single page. It's called a single page application, where it's pretty much all just kind of magic, and it works more like an application than it does a website. In those instances, you probably need to engage not only the digital team, but probably a web developer themselves to go and push that information to Google Tag Manager, which will then push it to Google Analytics. Don't worry too much about that unless you try to get in there with Google Tag Manager and hit a wall and being able to identify those events. It could be because Google Tag Manager doesn't know how the web developer coded that, and it's too much scripting for it to figure out. So I'd mentioned custom events. The three things you need to get set up are called custom dimensions. Custom dimensions let you group the activity in Google Analytics, specifically users and events, in ways that make sense for your business. So you can zoom in on the data in the buckets that work for you. So common custom dimensions that it's helpful to set up are things like market segments, personas, media part. Those are good on the user level. On the traffic source side, we often look at things like media partners, targeting methods, post type in social, right? These are all things you can tag the URL and push into Google Tag Manager and then into Google Analytics. When you go to set these up, again, Tag Manager is your friend. You're either going to be getting this information from the URL, or you're going to be getting it through some sort of a bridge between that user record and the and Google Tag Manager. A little bit of a shameless plug here. Brilliant Metrics actually has two proprietary tools for user data. Marketo, Mautic, or HubSpot to GTM. We've built a bridge for any of those three marketing automation systems to pull user data. We also have a tool called Segment Wire that goes and identifies which buckets people are in based on their behavior. So you can start to bucket your users inside of Google Analytics based on their past activity in a really kind of a smart scored way. And then we also have a tool called Happy URL that lets you pack as much information as you want into a short URL about where that traffic came from. So you can tag your social posts with all kinds of different values in it. You can tag all of your paid media with how it's targeted, the platform, where it ran, all kinds of stuff. Those are proprietary tools to us for our clients. For you're going to have to just work within what you can fit inside of a URL and what you can get through plugins or whatever on user data, getting that passed into Google Tag Manager. The third thing is custom metrics. When we look at custom metrics, here there are really two types. So the first type is what we call frequency metrics. We just want to count things. We want to know how often somebody scrolled beyond 50% on a web page, or how often they downloaded the thing, or how often they submitted a form. These are like did or did not kind of situations, and we're just counting. The other type of metric that we'll build in as a custom metric is a cumulative metric. This is something that adds up over time, often in the form of either time or dollars. So it could be minutes of video watched, but just happens to be neither time or dollars. But often it's like dollars added to cart or dollars checked out, revenue. It could also be amount of focus time on a given page, or pixels scrolled, which is something we've never measured, but would be really fun to measure. These cumulative metrics just kind of add up over time on a given user within a session, or over the total length of time for the user. I want to come back to the frequency metrics though, because there's a special frequency metric that we set up for every single client that I think you might get some value out of. And this is what we call a soft conversion. So a lot of marketers just consider a conversion, but then they're trying to figure out, well, what does a conversion mean? Because if somebody submits a form asking for a meeting to buy, that's clearly a conversion. If somebody checks out from uh, an e-commerce cart, that's clearly a conversion. But what if somebody submits the form for a email sign up? Well, that's not really a conversion, but it's a really good event that we want to track, and it's really important. So we introduced this idea of a soft conversion, meaning somebody got to a web page and then they did something that indicated they were in the right place. This really helped us optimize media because now we understand not only are we driving traffic, but we're driving quality traffic that is in the right place at the right time and taking good actions. And those soft conversions include things like scrolling past 50%, watching a video beyond 75%, filling out that newsletter subscribe, or interacting with some interactive element. Those are all considered our soft conversion. And all we do to track them is we pass a metric with a value of 1 that makes it a counting metric. So we're just counting it anytime that event happens. If it's one of those soft conversion events, we increment that metric for soft conversions by 1. And that just comes back again to Tag Manager. So when that event tag fires, you have an opportunity to pass additional information, and those can be dimensions or metrics. But in both cases, it's just a matter of adding a value to that list and then setting up Google Tag Manager, or I'm sorry, Google Analytics on the other side to listen for it. Quick shameless plug coming back. So again, Google Analytics out of the box doesn't collect that information. You can configure it to collect that information, but even after you do that, we ran into a big problem. As there are more and more bots on the internet acting on behalf of all of the AI outfits out there gathering information for generative AI, acting on researchers scraping web pages for nefarious reasons. There's a ton of reasons why these bots are out on the internet, some of them good, some of them bad. The problem is they aren't filtered out, and Google Analytics can contain up to 2/3 of its data being bots. Well, bots don't act like humans. Bots will act the same regardless of the quality of the content, right? And so you want to get that data out of there in order to find the signal in the noise. So we actually built a tool to do that called Bot Badger. It's available. It's on sale right now, as a matter of fact. And it sits in between your website and Google Tag Manager and gets all that noise out so that you're only looking at human data inside of Google Analytics, or at least 90-something% of the data inside of Google Analytics is human. We have found that it took us from not being able to come up with a good insight or a story behind what happened, not being able to get a good A/B test, all the way over to now we have conclusive A/B tests. We're telling that story well, everything makes sense, and we're able to understand what impact our changes made. Okay, moving from Google Analytics over to A/B testing. Everything I covered on the Google Analytics was a little intimidating, and I apologize for that. I want to make A/B testing the opposite and not intimidating. So while I'm going to go a little bit deep, the key takeaway I want you to take out of this is that there are easy ways to get started with A/B testing that you can do today that don't require a degree in statistics or a ton of effort and time to get set up. And then there are better and deeper ways to do that activity further down the road as you become more mature and get further evolved in how you approach that. So what is an A/B test? An A/B test is simply presenting 2 different versions of content or creative to see which one wins, which one actually outperforms the other. The next level of that, though, is making sure that not only are you doing this test to see who wins, but if you're doing it well, you're also getting an insight about your audience. You're getting an understanding of what makes somebody tick so that you can start out with your best foot forward on your next creative or content, right? And we'll talk about how to do that in a moment. Why should you do A/B testing? Because it adds up over time. They're often really small gains, 10%, 5%, 50%, but they add up over time. And every single time you make one of those incremental improvements, just like compounding interest in a bank account or your investments, it adds up. The insights that you gain can influence your marketing for years to come. If not only are you figuring out that A, B, B, but you understand why, then you can take that insight and go and apply it to the next creative and the next creative and the next creative. And those also compound over time. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not influencing your marketing in a positive feedback loop, then you're leaving it to chance and something's going to hit you sideways and knock you down. So when you go to execute these A/B tests, there's two places you can do it, and how you do it's completely different depending on which place you're doing it. The first place is creative. This is where you're presenting an offer to an audience. That could be a banner ad, it could be an email, it could be a postcard. The second place is in content. This is after somebody has clicked or engaged with that offer and now they're on a landing page, or maybe they're just browsing your website and they hit that page. Here, you're trying to get the desired action out of the user on that page. In the case of a blog content, it's just, could you be just scrolling to the bottom and reading the whole post? But in the case of a squeeze page, like a demo, schedule a demo page or a request a meeting page, you're trying to get those conversions. The tools you use are going to be different. If you're testing creative, you're going to do that in the platform that is presenting that offer. So that's going to be your ad platforms, your Facebooks, your LinkedIn's, your Google Ads, etc. If it's email, it'll be the email platform. For content, you have to install something on your website in order to be able to run these A/B tests. And there are a lot of tools out there. There used to be a really great free one called Google Optimize. Google sunsetted that product a couple of years ago. And now we're stuck paying for it. We have found Crazy Egg to be the most cost-effective and still good tool. And so we'll generally recommend clients purchase a Crazy Egg subscription if we're going to be running A/B tests on the website. All right, let's talk about testing creative on the left. This is where, again, something is better than nothing, and I want to inspire and encourage everyone in this call to start running some basic A/B tests with the content and the creative that you're putting out there. Most platforms will let you run multiple creatives at the same time and optimize for the one that runs better. There's also, in many platforms, you can run what's called dynamic creative, where you put in 5 different headlines and 5 different bits of copy and 5 different, CTAs, and then it goes and mix and matches and finds the best ones. If you don't do anything else, do this, because the algorithm, the machine will go figure out which one's best and then run with it. And you can go back and peek and see what won. You might not necessarily understand why, but you'll be able to see which combination they considered the magic combination. The challenge here is the result might be a little less conclusive. When these algorithms are doing this, they're doing it in a very fuzzy way, and you might not have something that would be perfectly statistically significant. If you ran a real study, you might come out with a different headline being the best headline. But again, something is better than nothing, and this is easy. The same thing's true in email. When you run an email, there's probably a button in the platform that says run an A/B test. Great, change the subject line on the next one. See if you get a better open rate. Change the call to action on the next one. See if you get a better click-through rate or click-to-open rate. These tools make these tests easy, but in the most cases, they will pick a winner before having complete statistical confidence, just because they're designed to get to that winner as quickly as possible. So better is to run a formal A/B test inside the platform. I know Facebook has an A/B testing tool. I don't know that Google Ads has one. There's ways to run one in the higher price platform, DV360. Here, not only are you running that A/B test, but the platform will make sure that it doesn't show, let's say we have a prospect named Julie and a prospect named Bob. It'll make sure that if Julie sees version A, Julie only ever sees version A. And if Bob sees version B, Bob only ever sees version B. This way, Julie can't be influenced by having seen B before and then clicking on A, and Bob can't be influenced by having seen A before and clicking on B. they're only going to be influenced by the creative they've seen. This gets you much more conclusive results. You can often also set a confidence threshold that you're expecting to get to, meaning how repeatable is this experiment if you were to run it again in the future. But if you're running the A/B test in the platform and you're not tagging things differently and you're only analyzing it in the platform, you're still missing out. There's still one more level of maturity you can take this to, and that's you run the A/B test in the platform, but you tag it such that you can see the difference in result in Google Analytics. So now you're looking at not only did they click, but what quality of click did I get? For content, you're going to install a tool like a Crazy Egg, and then here it's actually pretty straightforward. It seems intimidating, but all you need to do is say, make a variation of this page. You click on the thing you want to change, and right there inside of the editor, you can easily change text and image. Without any coding, without any developer, just swap out the text and the image and change those calls to action, change those key copy points. See what you can learn from your audience by changing one thing and seeing where that lift is. The key thing you want to look at is, do I have enough conversions for this particular test to give me a meaningful result? Because if your schedule a meeting page only gets one person submitting it a month, you're not going to be able to run an A/B test on it. At least not for the actual schedule a meeting. You might be able to run the A/B test to see how often people scroll to read the whole page, but not whether they fill out that form. All right, let's sum up and then we'll get to questions. Data-driven practices make you a better marketer. They enable continuous improvement. They actually expand creativity by giving your creative something other than a blank canvas. And most importantly, they allow you to demonstrate your value to the people that matter. KPIs sit on a spectrum. Choose one to two each. From the left, where you're going to be looking at a cost per basis to optimize your tactics. That's where you're looking at that consumption type of metric, all the way edging on doing. You're going to look at the middle section to make sure the graph is going up and to the right over time. And then you're going to look on the right-hand side of the continuum for ultimate impact. And if you need to validate your impact, that's where you run that demand lift or a sales lift study on those numbers on the right. Do not try to attribute anything that isn't on the left-hand side of the continuum, because if you do and you try to tie those KPIs back to activity, you will fail, or worse than that, you'll think you're succeeding and optimize the wrong things. Inside of Google Analytics, you yourself, if you're talented enough after your web team has installed Google Tag Manager, go in and set up the triggers and events. If you're not talented enough, pay your agency, your web team, hound the developer in the IT department to get this stuff set up, because it's a one-time setup and then you get the benefit the whole time you're using Google Analytics. But get custom events, dimensions, and metrics set up. If you feel so inclined, check out Bot Badger at botbadger.com and get the noise out of your Google Analytics. There are two places to create A/B tests, creative and content. Creative is easier. You can just set up variants inside of the platform, use dynamic content, or set up multiple ads and see which ad wins. Content gets a bit trickier. You have to install a tool, but it's still Crazy Egg, Visual Website Optimizer, Optimizely. These are all totally accessible tools. Once the dev team has them installed on the site, you can go in and create these tests yourself. This is not rocket science. Any A/B test is better than not testing, so do what's accessible to you. And with that, I will open things up to questions. I haven't seen anything in the chat as we've been going. But please post something now if you have a question. I'm not getting any questions. I'll give you just another minute to type or scan these QR codes. The one on the left will let you follow us on LinkedIn, where we post about these webinars, events, and other fun stuff. The one in the middle will schedule some time with me if you want to dig in one-on-one on your specific situation. And the one on the right is really just if you're coming in on a recording on YouTube or somewhere else, or you're coming in on the live stream to let you get access to the slides and recordings. All right, it's looking like I either did a great job or I lost everybody completely, because I've got no questions to answer. So with that, I hope hold on. Is there a minimum audience size to use A/B testing? The answer is yes and no, but it's not a matter of understanding the audience size. There's actually a tool. Well, first of all, Brenda, we've got a really great webinar that dives deep into A/B testing. It's on demand on our website. So if you go to under knowledge on demand, you'll find there's an A/B testing webinar in there, or just search for Brilliant Metrics A/B webinar. That'll dig deep into the how to set that audience size. But you're going to want to use something called a sample size calculator if you really want to guarantee you're going to get the best result out of your A/B testing. But again, some A/B testing is better than doing it perfectly by the book. So don't get dragged down into feeling like you need to have those sample sizes perfect. Dig in, start testing, and see what you can produce. All right, I think that's it. With that, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and Nick, I'll follow up with you separately.